we've talked about this a million times. I'm not a jersey guy. If I buy a jersey, it's a legend. I got the jersey because of Lonzo Ball because I was so excited, right? When he got here, you knew how pumped I was. Everybody that knows me well knows how pumped I was. And this news that came out that he is now going to be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks after he's getting looked at. It was arthroscopic. It's a camera thing, right? Or whatever they do in LA. They're doing that surgery on his knee again to look and see what they can actually find and be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. Does not mean he's on the court in 4 to 6 weeks. It means he's looked at. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think about this, man? Like, what are your initial thoughts on this?
My initial thoughts are, I guess, I'm glad we finally have an answer to what the hell's going on. We kind of had back and forth with Lefevre and Chicago media. Catman, Lefevre told us Lonzo would be ready for the season and Zach was going to end up in LA. Neither of those things happened. But at least we have some clarity on what's going on, because seeing these off-season runs where everybody's getting together and, your glue guy, your connector is not in these runs with everybody during the off-season was a little disheartening, and it really had you wondering what the hell was going on. Obviously, it's unfortunate that we had to make it through the rest of the regular season, the playoffs, and a full off season essentially before we found out what they were going to do. And I'm assuming that just has to be because it got to the point where it was like, I'm not going to be ready to go. We have to do something.
With you saying that, do you feel like we talked about this before? Not in depth like this with the injury. Obviously, we've been gone for a hot minute, but I don't want to say it because it sounds like I sound like an asshole when I feel like I say it. But do you think the Bulls were the Bulls misled, or did they not do their due diligence? Which one is it? It's kind of like, right? You have to really, like, when you watch our dude Joe Colley tweet. I know everybody, Joe Colley, he's a terrible guy. No, he's actually a great guy. But, he likes to poke fun. But he did make a really good point about that. He's like, they waited way too fucking long here. I mean, was Lonzo saying, what was happening here?
I don't know. I mean, do we have, I don't want to even think about the scenario, but do we have a fractured relationship here? Were the Bulls pushing too hard to get him back for the playoffs? And that created some separation leading into the offseason.
Exactly.
And tried to do his own thing in LA. And then that didn't quite work the way that he wanted it to either. And now we're back to here. Because that is a concern. I mean, I guess the one, I can't even call it a positive because it involves somebody else being injured. Robert Williams for the Boston Celtics.
8 to 12 weeks. I just saw that.
12 weeks. So you see what the potential repercussions of rushing somebody back for a playoff run. Obviously, the Celtics were more of a contender. They did make the championship, the finals there. So I guess in their case, maybe it was worth it. But to see Rob Williams rush it back, have, an impact for their team, but then to be out, for a good chunk of the beginning of the season, it kind of makes you wonder if maybe the Bulls, just pushed a little too hard. But Zoe didn't re-injure himself in a severe degree. So best case scenario, we are going to finish the season with Zoe, even if we don't start it with him. And that is the better outcome of the two, because we had the opposite last year, right? And we watched it, fall really quick.
It's 100% not better than not having him at all. And we have our boy Chad Sports fan who said that's why they went and got Dragic too. Yeah, and I was like looking at that. I thought the Dragic move at the time was like obviously a veteran move. And, I kind of convinced myself now that he says that when he did an interview, we wrote an article about it over at ontapsportsnet.com about him having wanting to play 20 to 25 minutes a game. And that's why he didn't go to Dallas. And when he came here, I'm like, oh, fuck do you mean? I'm like, what do you mean? But maybe they did know longer than initially. So with that being said, just to counterpoint you, buddy, and our Chai Sports fan buddy here, to counterpoint you, like, then why the fuck, if they knew it was that bad, then why the fuck did they take so long to go get this additional, this additional surgery, this additional look at him? Like, why did it take so long? I mean, 2 weeks before he hasn't even had it yet. He doesn't get it till Wednesday. Get him under the knife now. Why is he not
Well,
under the
no,
knife
I mean,
now?
because we saw Zach get under the knife, and he was back to action rather quickly
He did,
this
right.
offseason.
Like, I think he missed what? Well, right, in the offseason. But even when Zach got that, got the knee looked at before the All-Star break or whatever, it was right after. Like, he missed what, 1-2 games? I don't think he missed much from it when he got looked at. So I'm just curious on just the whole timetable and how it happened. I wish I had answers for everybody. You know,
Well, just the mystery around the injury to begin with. Like, it
right.
happened out of nowhere. You didn't really know how or when it happened. You just knew that Zoe was sitting out short term, then, doubtful, and on to meniscus issues. And you have the surgery. You think you're going to potentially get him back for the playoffs. I'm glad they at least put the kibosh on that early,
right.
just because going in with those kind of hopes would have been really damning for fans and the team itself. No, please don't bring Sato back. The Dragon is good enough. We're gonna have to push some IO minutes here. I mean, I guess this is the perfect segue. Who do you think starts? We talked about 20-25 minutes for Dragic being, kind of a requirement for him in his new landing spot with the team. Do you think he gets the nod over Io, or with that balance of offense, defense with Zach and Io, do you think that the second-year guard gets the nod instead?
Oh my God. So it's so hard. Like, because I'm plugging the website, and if anybody's watching, because I see a ton of you watching on Twitter right now, just go over to the YouTube. You don't even have to fucking subscribe. If you don't want to subscribe, don't fucking subscribe. But if you just want to go into the YouTube and hop in the comment section, come on over from the Twitter to the YouTube. I wrote an article about this over at YouTube at ontapsportsnet.com, and I picked Io. The reason I picked Io, there's a few reasons. I feel like he's younger, he's a little bit more hungry, he's in a contract year. And I don't care what anybody says, that does play a huge part in, for some of these players, it's financial security for this kid for the rest of his fucking life. If he balls out and goes nuts, he's going to get paid somewhere, if not here, which I would love to. I don't want him to go anywhere, but I also want to win. Io showed great defense last year. He can fight over screens real well. He can mask some of the things that Zach LaVine can't do on the perimeter defensively. And if Zach can do them, he's usually conserving that energy for the offensive side of the ball, right? Then I liked what Io kind of did last year from the three, too. Like, he was a decent shooter. I think he shot 36% overall. I have to pull it up. But, he was doing good from three. Found his teammates real well. I like Goran Dragic, but I'd like Dragic to be in that backup role. I'd like Dragic to get 15 to 20 minutes a game. He is doing great over with the Eurobasket right now. He's looked very good. No doubt about it. He's coming off a year where he was injured in the NBA, where he didn't really find consistency between Toronto and Brooklyn. So I chose Io. A little bit of homer in me. I chose Io. A little bit, I think, practicalness as well with the chemistry. He did start 40 games for us last year, Goose. And I know he went 18 and 22 in those games, Io was, as a starter. I did that off the top of my head. I need a stat guy. Chai Sports fan, check that on StatMuse. Io DeSumo was a starter. I believe it was 18 and 22 he went last year in the starting lineup. But there's so many different variables that played into that too, right? There's no, you don't have Patrick Williams. You don't have, who the fuck knows? You don't have Zach LaVine when he was starting to go down and get hurt. You had guys missing time.
And he didn't really have much relief in Caruso when he was out either. So
right. So, I mean, he's playing heavy minutes. And
top responsibility on the defensive end.
Right. So
best player.
I chose Io. Now, if this was Goran Dragic of 16, 17, 18, more so 17, 18, I would be like, okay, yeah. Miami Goran Dragic, all-star Goran Dragic. I mean, he's honestly, if you look at it, Goose, he's not that far removed from that appearance. And those Euros always get better with time. They're like wine. You know what I'm saying?
For our sake, I hope that is the case, because we need a bounce back year from Vooch as well.
I saw a great report on him. I'll let you tell who you want the starter to be or whatever, but I have a good thing on Vooch.
Okay, no, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I think you start Dragic just because of the age.
Okay.
Asking somebody the experience, but also what we saw with Thad. When you asked him to go to the bench as opposed to starting the game, that ramp-up period takes a while. Like, when you get older, you go from warm-ups, you sit down, you're on the bench for a half an hour before you go back into the game, maybe even an hour from warm-ups to your first appearance, and you're starting fresh again. For a young guy like Io, that's going to be a little easier to come off the bench and bring that spark and have that pop right away. And then, to your point, but the opposite end of it, it is Io's contract year. it might be more beneficial for the Bulls to have him come off the bench and more of a earn it, prove it, do it again style thing.
If you're the GM, would you want to do that and risk starting the better option? I mean, I don't know who the better option is. I'm just asking.
If it comes down to that, no. I mean, that's not going to factor in enough for me to be like, hey, I gotta dampen this guy's, potential salary for next year, especially because Io's going to be an unrestricted free agent. He's not going to be a restricted free agent. So I believe the Bulls will have some level of bird rights to where they can still pay him more if they want. But
they will be able to, yes.
Obviously, that only really factors in if somebody's going to offer him max money, which I hope he shows max player capabilities. But
would that be?
That would be fantastic. And then you might actually have to explore the crazy idea that I see floating on Twitter of trading Lonzo without ever seeing him play basketball again, which blows my mind.
I'm sorry, I'm not all about that.
No, I'm not about that at all. I don't really like the fact that, one, you'd be trading that as lowest value possible, and two, it just doesn't. That's not how you do a player. It's not. We just changed the perception from the outside for players on our organization. We don't need to go right back into damaged goods, sent them out before we even got any clarification again, because we've been down that road as well.